What if doing everything right financially is precisely what keeps your wealth from growing? You earn a stable income, you pay your bills on time, you avoid reckless spending, and yet a decade passes and your net worth has not moved in any meaningful direction. That contradiction is not a coincidence. It is the predictable output of a structural mechanism that most financial advice never addresses directly. The first dynamic worth examining is what economists sometimes call income-to-asset conversion efficiency. When a professional earns a salary, that income is taxed at the marginal rate before it can be deployed anywhere. What remains is then directed toward consumption, housing costs, debt service, and savings. Each of those destinations has a different capacity to generate future value. The structural problem is that the largest expenses most professionals carry, mortgages, car loans, and revolving credit, are architected to prioritize the lender's return before the borrower's equity position. A 30-year mortgage at a standard rate means a professional spends the first decade paying primarily interest, not building ownership. The asset is present on a balance sheet, the equity is not growing at the pace most people assume. The second dynamic operates at the level of inflation and purchasing power allocation. Wages in developed economies have historically trended upward in nominal terms, but real wage growth, adjusted for housing costs, healthcare, and education, has been substantially slower than asset price appreciation in equities and real estate. This creates a quiet structural divergence. Professionals who hold income as their primary financial mechanism are running on a treadmill where the belt moves slightly slower than the incline increases. Meanwhile, those who hold assets experience compounding appreciation that is independent of their labor output. The gap between income earners and asset holders does not widen dramatically in any single year. It widens gradually and then suddenly over a decade. The third dynamic is the tax architecture that governs how different types of income are treated. Salary income is treated as ordinary income at the highest applicable rates. Capital gains on assets held beyond 1 year are taxed at substantially lower rates in both the United States and across most European jurisdictions. Dividend income and carried interest are treated with further preferential treatment in many structures. This is not a loophole. It is a deliberate architectural feature of modern tax systems that incentivizes asset ownership over labor income. A professional who earns $100,000 in salary and one who earns the same amount through long-term investment gains will pay materially different effective tax rates. The structural gap compounds annually. Understanding these dynamics suggests a specific set of repositioning moves. The first is a shift in how professionals evaluate debt. Not all debt is equivalent. Consumer debt and depreciating asset financing extract value from future income. Leverage used to acquire appreciating or income-generating assets operates differently. The distinction matters more than the total debt figure. The common mistake professionals make here is treating debt reduction as universally virtuous, when the strategic question is what the freed capital is then doing. The second shift involves increasing the proportion of income that converts into asset ownership rather than consumption or pure savings. Liquid savings held in low-yield instruments lose real purchasing power over time. The structural objective is not to save more, but to ensure that saved capital is positioned within vehicles that participate in asset appreciation. The third shift is a deliberate engagement with the tax efficiency of one's financial structure. Professionals who integrate tax-advantaged accounts, business structures where applicable, and long-term capital gain treatment into their financial positioning are operating with a meaningfully lower effective cost on their wealth accumulation. The distinction between professionals who make structural financial progress and those who do not is rarely a function of income level or spending discipline. It is a function of whether their financial architecture is aligned with the mechanisms through which modern systems actually distribute wealth. Financially sophisticated individuals do not simply earn and save, they position themselves within structures where value accrues independently of hours worked. That is not a mindset shift, it is a technical one. If this changed how you evaluate your financial structure, consider subscribing to Unfiltered Finance.